Welcome to the November meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. I don't see Dr. Shackelford here this evening. So anyway, if you would, please stand as I'll lead us in prayer, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the wonderful weather you've given us, God. I pray that you would just be with those who aren't with us this evening for whatever reason. God, I pray that you'd watch over and protect those that are sick in our community. God, I pray for wisdom this evening as we do the city's business. And I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our future meetings are Bartlett Station Commission, which is a special call meeting on November 10th at 7:30 a.m. Bartlett Arts Council, November 16th at 6 p.m. BPAC Advisory Board, November 16th at 6 p.m. Design Review Commission, November 16th at 6:30 p.m. And the Industrial Development Board, which is also a special call meeting, at November 18th at 7 p.m. Recognitions, as normal, we would recognize any scouts or any special groups here seeking recognition. I don't see any. So we'll move on to a check presentation. Michael Goldberg, if you would come up. Understand there is a presentation to Youth Villages and those that would like to join him.
Thank you so very much. As we're coming, this is once again our annual Pickleball Tournament. This is a tournament that is put on by our Pickleball Committee. And before we get started, I would like to pass the microphone to Rick Darling, who is the chair of our Pickleball Committee.
Thank you, Michael. We just wanted to take a minute, and I see that the mayor's not here tonight, but we wanted to take a minute for the pickleball community. We want to say a special thank you to the mayor, to the city council, and especially the Parks and Recreation people, Shan and Paul, for the beautiful outdoor pickleball courts at Chatillon that we have. It's just a great facility. Everybody that I talk to say it's one of the finest facilities in the Mid-South. So we really appreciate everything you did to get those courts for us. Thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it back to Michael.
Thank you, Rick, so very much. We are so very grateful for all the work that the Pickleball Committee has done. And this year is our 7th annual. Unfortunately, last year, to circumstances, we weren't able to hold our tournament. But this year being our 7th annual Pickleball Tournament, this is the highest number that we've raised ever. And so this check we're going to present today to Pat Lawler and Youth Villages for $51,770.61 on behalf of the City of Bartlett and the Bartlett Parks and Recreation Department.
Well, thank you, and I especially want to thank Rick and for all his work. And Rick, this was more money than you raised the first 6 years. This is unbelievable. Yeah, it's very generous. I attended the last day of the event. If you've ever been to a pickleball tournament, there's a lot that goes on in a pickleball tournament. There's balls flying everywhere, games going everywhere. There's referees everywhere. It's kind of chaos, organized chaos, but it was a lot of fun. And I know a tremendous amount of work goes into this. And I will tell you, we haven't had a special event in almost 2 years because of the pandemic. So this is, quite a surprise, and just so honored to be the recipient of the pickleball tournament. Some of us are old enough to remember 1986 when Memphis Boys Town and Dogwood Village merged. Raise your hand if you remember that, 86. Some of y'all are so young you don't remember. Maybe your parents remember, or your grandparents. But actually, the Bartlett campus had closed, and it was called Memphis Boys Town. It closed, and all the kids were gone. But at the peak, they had 48 young people on that campus in the 80s. We have 262 young people on that campus today. There's 78 girls, 184 boys. And unfortunately, all those kids will not go back home to their families. You drive by, you see the kids playing around outside. Unfortunately, you can't see a lot of the campus because it goes way back there. You see we have kids that are from 8 years old to 18, and you see all the kids playing, having a good time, and we all would love for them to go back home to their families or a grandparent or find a new family, maybe adoptive or foster family. But unfortunately, many of those young people cannot go home to their families, and they won't go home at all. They'll have to leave independently. And I was talking to Lance last week, who's been there a while, and he just turned 17, and this is a great kid, just a great kid. But he's had trouble in foster care. It just hadn't worked out. And some kids, when they get to the age of 16, 17, they say, look, don't make me go to another foster home and try to build a relationship with another family. Just let me kind of turn 18 and age out. So I asked Lance what was his plans. He said, well, I'm going to be aging out of the foster care system. So at 18, that means in the old days, we just waved goodbye. We have a program now called LifeSet that this money is going to support that helps these young people find a job, find housing, continue their education, find transportation, just continue life as a young adult. Because when they leave, kids like Lance, they have no support system. There's no family. Unfortunately, when most kids grow up in foster homes and in and out of residential programs, they don't really have any friends. And so it's really tough. So this is why this is so important. This is to go to support a young man like Lance and many others that leave that campus living independently as young adults. So thank you so much. We love being in Bartlett. Our national headquarters in Bartlett, up on Brother Boulevard. I live in Bartlett, where I have for 30 years. And, of course, our largest campus with the most kids on it is here in Bartlett. Thank you so much for y'all's generous support. We really appreciate you guys.
Smile, Paul.
Katie's going to get the picture in? Get the picture, young lady.
Stand over the shoulders on the back row. Get down the back row, stand over some of the short ones. You need to have your picture in there.
Y'all got to stand in front here. Tighter. We have HR going on to get too close here.
Don't lose that. That's the important.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
I've never really seen it.
Thank you.
Hey, Pat.
Thank you. Now I'm going to come down there for another proclamation. Now we have another proclamation I need to read tonight. This is from the office of the mayor. It's whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, now therefore I, A. Keith McDonald, Mayor of the City of Bartlett, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, November 9, 2021, as Arbor Day in the City of Bartlett, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. I also urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. And it's signed A. Keith McDonald, Mayor of Bartlett. And I don't know who I'm supposed to give that to, but whoever it is, it'll be here. When
That was an honest statement by a hard-working vice mayor.
The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes. You should have received a copy of the minutes in your package. We have a motion to approve and a second. If you would, go to your device and vote. The minutes are approved 6-0. Next is the consent agenda, which there are 4 items on the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you read those items into the record?
Item 1, special event permit for Christmas and Bartlett Market and festivities. Item 2, subdivision contract for Walter and Virginia Davis Manor subdivision. Item 3, purchase of Orion water meters. Item 4, treasurer's report for September 2021.
As is our custom, any alderman can pull any of these items for any reason. Does anyone would like to pull any of these items? Seeing no one, we're going to get a motion.
Move it out.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If you would, go to your device and vote. Item is approved 6-0. There are 4 items under new business. Madam Clerk, would you read item 1?
Item 1, to reestablish the November 23rd, 2021 Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. At a previous meeting, you voted to cancel the second meeting in November. It looks now like we may have some business we need to have at that meeting. You'll hear later from Union Depot about that project. And in order to keep that moving, we need to have this meeting and keep that moving through the process. So,
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. If you would, go to your device and vote. Item passes 6-0. Madam Clerk, would you read item 2?
Item 2, proposal to name the new fleet maintenance facility the A. Keith McDonald Fleet Maintenance Facility in honor of A. Keith McDonald.
It's been recommended that in consideration of the 20 years as mayor and additional years as alderman that we name this new maintenance facility on Yale Road after the mayor.
Move it out.
Second. We have a motion and a second. If you any discussion, I'm sorry, should have done that before. Go to your device and vote then, please. Item is approved 6-0. Madam Clerk, would you read item 3 into the record?
Resolution 33-21, a resolution to amend the City of Bartlett fiscal year 2022 American Rescue Plan Act Fund to provide for resources to respond to the current public health emergency as authorized in the American Rescue Plan Act.
Mr. Phoebus.
This is a resolution to authorize payment to Bartlett, St. Francis Hospital, Bartlett, up to an amount of $1 million. It'll be on a reimbursement basis, and it is an authorized expenditure of ARPA funding.
You've heard the recommendations or any?
I do have something I need to read.
Well, can we get it on? Can we? Is there a motion? Motion. We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Now, Alderman Elliott.
Okay, I just need to let this be known. I am a member of the board of directors for St. Francis Hospital Bartlett. As being on the board, I receive a small stipend for attending the board meetings. Although I will not receive any benefit from the proposed resolution to reimburse St. Francis Hospital Bartlett from the American Rescue Plan Act funds for contract staffing expense due to the COVID-19 surge, I publicly acknowledge my indirect conflict of interest in the proposed resolution about to be voted on. However, I declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens of this body represents.
Any other comments? If you would.
Sorry, I have a question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know we talked about it in the work session, but you're saying up to $1 million?
Yes.
I thought he already had something presented, didn't he?
It's an amount up to $1 million. It's reimbursable once we get invoices or documentation from the hospital. It'll be paid.
Okay. Well, and I just want to say I appreciate everybody listening to me in the work session, but I still stand by that Tenet is a huge corporation. They just purchased a new company for $1.2 billion yesterday. They had an earnings statement where they have $2 billion in cash, and they're making over $100 million a quarter. So I just want to explain my reasoning. I'm still standing by that. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Oh, ouch. Go ahead.
Alderman Parsons.
I'm just thankful that we do have a intensive care unit here in Bartlett for our citizens to go to. And I know it's been a troubling time through this, but I'm just thankful to have a city that's big enough and a community large enough to have a hospital within its city limits for our citizens to go to.
And, as we learned in the work session, I want the citizens to know that they were way beyond capacity, having to hire contractual nurses, which most of the hospitals had to do, but those nurses were making $195 an hour, way beyond what the normal rate is, that they were having to pay to staff ICUs to care for a lot of COVID patients for days and days on ventilators. As well, they are a for-profit hospital, but they also do pay taxes because they are a for-profit hospital. They do pay taxes into the city of Bartlett as well as the county and all that. So the other hospitals have lots of money, even though they're for not-profit hospitals, have a lot of money in their bank accounts too. So, that being said, I don't know that it's that unusual that a for-profit hospital has money being held in that amount because, they do have to maintain facilities and buy equipment and all that kind of thing. So that's just some of the facts that the public needs to understand too.
Jack?
Alderman Pleasant.
And like our municipal school system, our police department, our fire department, I'm looking at the brighter side of it. But my colleague across from me, he's bringing up things that bothers him. That don't mean we're against any hospital or anything. I'm definitely not. I've been with the St. Francis since they broke ground all the way through their cardiac unit, and spent a lot of time when I was in state government working really day and night because they didn't want us to have that hospital, your two major, Baptist and Methodist, and I was friends with all of the CEOs. But we wanted our hospital here in Bartlett, and it is a godsend, and I can't, control like how much money they make, but I'm gonna stay away from the money thing because it seems like everybody but me is making $1 billion. but anyway, but I'm coming close to it, serving on this board, I think. But anyway, so I do love the hospital for that reason, and I knew all the CEOs when they was there all the way up through, and as a city grew, it's a godsend to us really. But there again, there's probably a lot of things that different people ought to look into and find the reasons why. But everybody's got their view, and I'm gonna let everybody have a view because I want my view, and so I'm gonna vote with the majority on it though.
Any other comments?
And I will say too that just so the public knows that this money that the federal government gave to cities and the county and all that. This is an approved usage of those funds, is to reimburse or help hospitals out that cared for all the COVID patients.
Yeah, just so the public knows, we were given $2.8, I believe, $million this year, and we have another $2.8 million, I believe, coming next year. But there are specifics that money can be spent. It's not just something we can spend on whatever we'd like. Paving projects probably won't work. So, I mean, we are designated on how we spend those dollars, and we're trying to spend them wisely for the citizens of Bartlett. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to say I was not trying to say that we were doing anything wrong or that it was wrong for Tenet Corporation to ask for reimbursement. I did not mean to.
I definitely understood where you're coming from, Alderman.
Yeah, we have a finite amount of money, and so I'm just trying to make the best and highest use of it.
And that's what's wrong with a lot of people nowadays. They don't ask questions because they're afraid somebody won't like it. But, I mean, you're an alderman just like I am.
Well, I support. I mean, it's really nice to drive by and see the word Bartlett on the hospital. It's really nice. But like I say,
Well, look, as you leave this meeting, I can assure you, look, our great-great-great-great-grandchildren will be paying for this, so don't worry about it.
Oh, yes, that's true. All right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? If you would, then go to your device and vote, please. Item passes 5-1. Next item on the agenda is, Madam Clerk, would you call that in item 4?
Tax Increment Financing Program briefing for Union Depot project.
Mr. Brown.
This is a project that, a mixed-use residential project that some of you may have seen at the Industrial Development Board the other night, where they approved moving forward with this project. It's at the Baptist Children's Home site. It's going through a fast-track process over the next couple of months to try to get a tax increment financing approved for this project, and then through all the planning commission, special use permit, the process is got to go through. But we're trying to get this done by the end of the year. So we're going to have the additional meeting in November for you guys to consider this project. And as it's starting to move forward, we thought it was important that Dexter Muller, the consultant on the project for Grant Homes, at least give a briefing tonight so you guys know what's going on as it moves through the process of county commission committees and other boards and for approval. So Dexter Muller's here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Some of you were able to be present the other night at the Industrial Development Board, and just to make it clear, the board was only asked to authorize the forming of economic impact plan and submission of that. So the other night was, not really a formal meeting of voting or anything like that. But tomorrow, really to meet a significant challenge in the time frame, we've scheduled tomorrow to give a similar type of briefing to the County Commission Economic Development Committee. They want that to happen before any formal votes come from the cities, because if they've got a concern about it, they want to express that before they see it in a final form. So tomorrow's briefing is nothing, again, more than going through the project, a little bit about the total investments that are going to be made, and then to address any questions they have. We felt strongly that you ought to see it before any county commission committee or anyone else does, so we appreciate you scheduling it tonight. Many of you have watched the Baptist Children's Home for decades, and as I mentioned the other night, actually I adopted both of my children, and so I know what it is to have a place that takes care of kids. And you see youth villages that, is doing a similar type of operation. But for whatever combination of reasons, the Baptist Children's Home, of number 4 or 5, maybe 4 years ago, decided that they were not going to continue operations. That's a really high profile and a strategic piece of property for Bartlett. It's 73.9 acres, so that makes it a quite large piece of property. And right at the intersection of what are, I think of at Highway 70 and 64 as being two major highways, but, to us, they're the major roads in the city. So being at that location, it really is an important piece of property to develop. Of course, today it's generating no property taxes for either you or the city, and not that that's something that we feel badly about it, because they provided a great service. But now that it's vacant, there's an opportunity to do something that provides resources that'll help the city and the county carry out the missions that you've got. Grant Homes has a contract to purchase the property, and it really is contingent upon them being able to have a plan approved that you support. And of course, you'll be going through the planning process simultaneously with the TIF process. And then the other is the tax increment financing to allow the substantial amount of public improvements that need to be made. And that'll really, depending on how it's done, can open up some other properties. I know, for example, that the city of Memphis has sort of curtailed the sewer extensions in the southern part of Bartlett, as they have in other parts of, even in Memphis as well. And this could potentially pose some sewer solutions that would be of benefit, not only this property but others. But they're working through that at the same time with the planning process. So really, in addition to just the financial benefits that will come out of it, and there's about 85,000 square feet of commercial space that'll generate sales taxes as well. But in addition to that, I think it gives you some new offerings for residential lifestyles. And you're really seeing that in the city to the east, which I've done a lot of work with. You have several developments that have taken there where they've got, integrating the groups of different types of units, and that's what is being proposed to you. So tonight, this is a briefing. We would certainly entertain any of the questions that you have about the project or the TIF sequence, anything like that, how a TIF works. I know this is the first one to go through. Memphis has at least 5 TIFs that have been approved. Millington has 3 or 4. One was approved about a week ago at the county commission. Lakeland has 2. And so I think it's appropriate for a substantial development like this in Bartlett for you to be able to take advantage of the partnership with the county as well. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
How many things are going to be like apartments and stuff? Do you know how many you're going to try to?
Yeah, there's different types of combinations of units. So the single-family homes, there are about 158 of those, and those would be in about the $440,000 range. Then there's also townhouses. And there are 92 townhouses, and those would typically be in like the 300, 330, something range like that. There are lofts that are above the commercial, and there's 62 of those. And then the flats, which are, I think, the multifamily that you're talking about, there's 334.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Gooden?
So, Dexter, those flats and those lofts, those
Can't hear you.
are occupied, understand?
Well, the townhouses are owner occupied. The single family, of course, are owner occupied. So the lofts above the commercial, those will be rental, and then the flats will be as well.
Which is what the majority of them are over there.
Yes.
Any other questions? This doesn't, go ahead, Alderman.
Is this similar to, what's maybe going on out in Lakeland?
Yeah, if you look at the Lakeland Commons, which is on Highway 70, they've got commercial on the ground floor. They have lofts above that. They also have townhouses that are adjacent to it. So they have, multifamily there as well. In the Lake District, which is a bigger development, right at the old factory outlet mall site. They have the similar combination. They have more multifamily units than this is, but they also have townhouses, they have single family, and they have commercial in that as well.
Go ahead, Alderman.
How would you compare the project here at Bartlett as being planned against the Lakeland project, what they are building out there right now? In the same level, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities because, first of all, a commercial space is really sort of in transition these days, and there's so much more pressure on building commercial. Some cities would say we'd like to have a lot more commercial. The problem is that nobody knows what the commercial world is going to look like now. So you've got 85,000 square feet, which is a pretty substantial amount of commercial. That's really about the size of a neighborhood center. So you've got that there. And when you look at the townhouses and the single-family homes and the flats, it's very similar to the ones that are being built in those other two cities. And it's really more like, this one also has pedestrian ways that connect those things. People are biking a lot more and want to have things that are close to them so that they've got the commercial that's close to the residences. They don't have to drive all the time. So I think there's a similarity with those, and it just shows that this is a lifestyle that more people are interested in living in.
Two of my friends have just spoke recently that they've been able to buy something to downsize, and when they sold their home, they would have stayed here in Bartlett, and they're also business owners here, but they had to move out to Lakeland. But this will fit a lot of needs for a lot of older people.
When Mayor Flaherty was the mayor here, and Charlie Goforth was the chief administrative officer, I did a city plan for Bartlett. And the statement then was, if you want to move up, you have to move out. Because you had sort of middle income housing, but there was no upper income housing that was being built. So if you wanted a larger home or, nicer amenities, you had to move out of the city. It's almost the opposite now, because a lot of families, you've seen in Arlington and some other places, the folks that are moving into a lot of these flats are people that are doing exactly what you want, or what you're saying, and that is they want to move from a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house and move either into a townhouse or a flat, because they're going to be traveling or going to see their kids in other cities, and they don't really want to have a large home with a lot of grass and things like that to maintain. So I think having that, as an additional option for you is a positive for the city.
Well, several of us went to Middle Tennessee a couple of years ago to view some of these type developments. I'm for one, am excited to see something like this coming to Bartlett and looking forward to it taking place. Any other comments or questions?
I've just said for a long time that we need more zero lots or whatever for people like me now that don't need a house the size I have, and so this is going to be providing that kind of need.
Absolutely.
Well, and there are even some options where, like in the townhouses, for example, that the homeowners association and the developer maintains the yard, which would suit me just fine.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dexter. Again, there's no vote required for this tonight. It's information only to get this process rolling. And if there are any other questions, go ahead, Alderman Parsons.
Dexter, did I understand you say that the one at Evergreen and Lakeland, there's no single family at all in it, right?
Well, the one that's Lakeland Commons, that's on Highway 70, there's no single family in that one.
And you said there's
158 here at about 440,000. That was really, among other things, because there is demand for new housing in Bartlett. And I think this opens, I've lived on Brunswick Road for about 30 years, and I haven't seen nearly as much new development taking place in Bartlett as some of the eastern suburbs in Lakeland and Arlington. And I think there's a really pent-up demand for new single-family homes. But to have these also gives you a buffer between the other residences that are already there.
So the residents would, if the end product, the residents would have an opportunity to buy a single-family home and a townhome.
That's right.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Dexter. We appreciate you coming down tonight.
Thank you very much.
As is our custom, that's the conclusion of our regular agenda, but anyone can address this board for up to 3 minutes on any subject. Any of the aldermen have anything they'd like to?
I do.
Go ahead, Ms. Alderman
I
Ellis.
just want to remind everybody that Thursday, this Thursday, November 11th at 10 a.m., they will be having the Veterans Ceremony at Veterans Park. If the weather is inclement, it will be at the Pavilion right there nearby. So if you would like to be there and honor the veterans, it would be a good thing to do, and maybe we'll not have rain. And but anyway, November 11th at 10 a.m. Thanks.
Any other aldermen? Any of our directors have anything they'd like to address? Anybody in the audience that'd like to address this board, now'd be the time to do it. Seeing no one coming forward, and this being the conclusion of our regular business, this meeting's adjourned.